Welcome, Coder Woman, to the final day of your JavaScript learning journey. Today we'll continue working on our portfolio project. Each episode will add another cool functionality. In this episode, we'll focus on navigation. We'll add a cool effect. We'll make the active menu link more visible. We'll change its style a bit to make it stand out. When you click on a menu item, it will become active. This is a great effect because it helps users always know where they are on the page. Alright, let's see exactly what we need to do. As you can see on the current page, all the links look the same. They are white, underlined with a blue dashed line and turn blue when hovered over. Right now, when I click a link, I am not taken to the section of the page and the menu doesn't show where I am. The link returns to its white color and doesn't stand out. We'll change this by making the clicked link remain blue until another page section is clicked. I'll also show you how to make links to page sections. So here's the plan. When I click a link in the menu and I'm taken to a specific section, the anchor tag I clicked will stay blue until I go to another section of the page. If I click another link, the previous one will return to white color, and the recently clicked one will be highlighted. It sounds like a good plan, right? Okay, let's first figure out how to do this. First and very importantly, we need to make the header visible again, right? We have it hidden, so it would be hard to work on it. We need to add proper href attributes for each anchor tag. For example, if I click the About link, I should be taken to the About Me section. We also need to add an event listener to each anchor tag to listen for a click event. What's more, we need to know which element was clicked to change its style. But that's not all. Adding a new style to the clicked element is not enough. We also need to remove the styles from the previously clicked element that is no longer active. This class can be set to only one menu element at a time. It sounds a bit complicated, but don't worry, we'll solve this task together. Let's start by making the header visible again. In the CSS file, I will remove the display property set to none and uncomment the line with the display property set to sticky. Great, now we can start working. First, I'll add a class header nav link to each anchor tag. I'll skip the link where we download the PDF file. We don't need to include this element since it doesn't lead to any section, right? For now, we only have styles that apply to every anchor tag in the project, such as the white color, dotted text decoration in blue, and a short color change animation. I'm adding this class to each anchor tag in the menu because I'll use it to find these elements in the JavaScript code easily. We'll now add a variation of this class called a modifier, according to the BEM naming methodology. We'll add this class later to the clicked link. I'll name it header nav link active. What styles will we add here? I think it will be enough to change the color of this link to blue, the same as in the hover effect, which is 2C74B3. Let's see how this will look. For testing, I'll add this modifier to one of the links in the HTML code. Okay, now let's see the effect. It looks pretty good, right? The active link stands out among the others. Let's remove this class for now. Now let's work on links. When you learned about anchor tags, I mentioned that you could use absolute or relative URLs, right? But I didn't tell you about one more type, a link to a section on the same page. And that's what we'll use here in the header. We can click a link to jump to any element on the same page. How do we do that? To make this work, we need two things. First, we need to add an ID to the element we are interested in. Second, we need to use the name of that ID in the link with a hash symbol. Let me show you an example on our page. Let's take the project section, for example. I'll add an ID called projects to it. Now, for the navigation to work, I'll add an href attribute with the ID name and a hash to the anchor tag named projects. Watch what happens now. I click on this link and I am taken to the project section. Cool, right? This way, the user can easily navigate between sections. So let's add IDs to the remaining sections. For each section, I'll set an ID with the same name as the class name. Then I'll save them in the href property for each anchor tag in the menu. Done. Now let's check if everything works correctly. I click different items in the menu and get taken to different sections. Awesome! We did it! It's time to move on to JavaScript. And here we'll start with a task for you. Your task will be to save all anchor tags with the class header navlink into one variable. But that's not all. Your next task will be to add an event listener to each of them, listening for the click event. For now, leave the function empty. We'll fit it in a moment. The only code you should put inside the function is console.log to check what element it is. This way, you'll ensure that all menu links have the event listener set correctly. Try to handle these two tasks. We've done this together before, so you should know how. Are you ready? Pause the video and try to write it yourself. Okay, it's time for the solution. The challenge in this task was that there were several menu elements. As I hope you remember, in such a case, we used the querySelectorAll method to save all elements with the same class into a variable. This variable is a node list, so we can run a loop on it, right? We need a loop to add an event listener to each anchor tag. How do we write this loop? First, we set the initial index to 0. Then, we set how many times this loop should run. So, how many times? We have 5 links in the menu, right? We skipped the download CV link, so we have 4. But we shouldn't just enter the number 4. If we ever change our mind and add or remove a link in the menu, there will be a problem. A more flexible solution will be to use the length of this node list. It will be the number 4 because that's how many anchor tags we have. Remembering that counting starts from 0, the loop should run until the variable I is less than the length of the list, right? Finally, we add 1 to I. Our loop is ready. We can start working on the links. I added an event listener for each link to listen for a click. As you can see, there's only console.log inside the function for now, showing the specific link when clicked. Now if I click, for example, About, I'll see that element in the console. So the navlinks variable at index I is the clicked element. This way we know what the user clicked. Thanks to this, we can add the active class to that element, right? To make our code more readable even for us, I'll save this link in a variable and call it a link. When the loop runs for the first time, the link will be the anchor tag with the text home. It will be navlink at index 0. In the next iteration, it will be the anchor tag with the text about. That will be navlink at index 1, and so on. As you can see, this task is quite similar to the one from yesterday when you prepared the frequently answered questions section. Okay, let's remove the console.log and start writing the function to run when the user clicks a link. Two things need to happen. First, we need to add the active class to the clicked element. Second, we need to check if any element already has the active class and remove it. Now let's move on to adding the active class. Think for a moment, how would you do it? We want to add it to the element that the user clicked. After such a click, the function for that specific element is activated. So at that moment, we have the currently clicked element in the link variable, right? We just need to add the active class to the clicked element, the link variable. Done. As you can see, when I click on a link, it turns blue. But it stays blue even if I click another link. We need to fix this. Let's check now if any link has the active class and let's remove it. Similar to the FAQ section, we'll save the variable inside the event handler function. As you remember, we saved a specific question and answer there. Here we'll save one element, the active link, until we click a new one. I'll save it in a variable called previous active link. I'll search for it using query selector and enter the class with the modifier, header navlink active. Of course, remember the dot at the beginning. Why do I need this element? When we click a link, we need to verify if any link is active at the moment of clicking. If we don't do this, we might have more than one active link. For example, first I click the link to the contact section, which changes to blue. Then I want to go to another section like About. When I click the link to the About section, it also changes to blue. It has just become active, right? But if we don't do anything with the previous element, it will still be active and blue. So we need to check if any element is active and which one it is. Let's check what's in the previous active link variable in the console. I click on an element in the menu. It looks like there's nothing there now. The console shows null. This is true because we don't have an element that had the active class before clicking. I click on another element and check the console again. This time we have the element that I clicked on previously. Great, right? As you can see, even if I click different elements, the console always shows me the previous element with the active class. That's exactly what we needed. Now we need to remove the active class from it. How do we do that? Let's try using the remove method. Okay, I've just added the code. Let's see if it works. Oops! After clicking a link, the console shows an error. So when we want to remove the class from an element, we can't because we don't have any element in the variable. It's null. How to solve this? We'll use an if-else statement. We'll write that removing the class should only happen if an element was inside the previous active link variable. But how can we check this? By writing a condition that previous active link is not equal to null, right? As you can see, I wrote only the if statement. This is a very common technique. Sometimes there's no need to use the else statement. In this case, if previous active link is not null, the code to remove the active class will run. If the condition is not met, that is, previous active link is null, then this code simply won't run. The program will skip this line and move on. Let's see if it works. It looks like it works. The code is error-free now. So to sum up, in previous active link, we have the previously clicked element. And in the link variable, we have the currently clicked element. That's all we need for this task. Let's check if everything works correctly. Yes, when I click a link, it turns blue and stays that way until I click another. Then it returns to the standard styles and another clicked element becomes active. Great effect! Oof, it wasn't an easy task. Using loops can be confusing in general. If you still have some difficulty understanding how loops work, don't worry, just keep practicing. Finally, we should change the code to use functions, right? It's a good practice, but we'll leave the code as it is in this case. Why? Rewriting this code into functions would be complicated, so we'll stick with the version without functions this time. But of course, you can try to do it as an extra task. In the meantime, I invite you to the next video where we'll make a really cool feature. Are you curious about what it is? Don't wait, just start the next video. See you in a moment. Hello again! It's time for another exciting JavaScript challenge. This time, the topic will be delicious. We'll create a hamburger. And no, I don't mean a bun with meat, vegetables and sauces. A hamburger is a very handy element on websites. Developers call it by various names, such as hamburger menu, hamburger navigation, hamburger button, or simply hamburger. The name comes from its look. Just look at the slide. It's 3 parallel lines. What do they have to do with a hamburger? Well, they just look like one. The top line is the top bun. The bottom line is the bottom bun. And the middle line is the meat or filling of the burger. Where are we going to use it? We will only show it on mobile devices where our menu doesn't fit the width. Watch as I narrow the browser window. At some point, the menu stops being fully visible and gets very close to the logo. We'll fix this by showing only the hamburger icon on smaller devices instead of the full menu. When the user clicks it, we will create a very nice effect. We'll cover the entire page with a blue background and we'll display the menu on it, but this time from top to bottom. Of course, users can close the menu by clicking a link, which will also take them to the selected section of the page. This sounds like a really fun challenge, so let's get started on this exciting hamburger adventure. Yummy! As usual, let's first think about what we need to do to achieve the final effect I just showed you. We'll start by creating and styling a new HTML element. Each hamburger line could be a separate element of the same width stacked on top of each other. But you know what? A web developer's life also means making things easier whenever possible. So we'll use an HTML entity that looks like a hamburger. Of course, if you want to test your CSS skills, try creating the hamburger yourself. But consider this as an extra challenge. Okay, that's the first task. Next, we'll create the menu that pops up when the hamburger is clicked. We want the menu to cover the entire page with a blue background and have links in the center. We'll also add a close button in the top right corner. This will be similar to the modal we created earlier, where we covered the page and centered the modal with a close button. We'll use that knowledge for this task. Next, we'll handle the interactivity. How should the menu work? First, the menu should open when the hamburger icon is clicked. Second, it should close when we click the close button. Third, it should also close when we click one of the menu links. For example, if we click the About Me link, the page should show that section and the menu should disappear. Okay, let's start by preparing the HTML code. I'll create a button for the hamburger and name its class Hamburger. Since the hamburger will only be visible on mobile devices, we'll write the CSS to make it invisible first, right? So we'll put all its styles in the responsive.css file. But in which section? Let's see how our menu behaves using the device toolbar. First, I'll set it to responsive and check how the menu looks at different window widths. As you can see, up to about 600 pixels wide, the menu looks fine. Below that, it doesn't fit well. Do you remember the commonly used breakpoints and which ones we used in the project? We have a breakpoint at 480 pixels and another at 768 pixels. Which breakpoint should we use for our menu? If we set the hamburger menu at 480 pixels or less, it wouldn't change much. The menu between 481 pixels and 600 pixels would still need improvement. A better solution is to use the 768 pixels breakpoint. This way, the hamburger menu will be used for widths below 768 pixels. And above that, it will disappear because the display property will be set to none as we defined in the style.css file. But here's an important note. If we don't set any value for the display property in the responsive.css file, we still won't see the hamburger. This is because what we set in the style.css file remains active until we override it in the media query. So we need to start by setting the display property to block. This will make the hamburger visible. Next, we'll make this element bigger by setting its font size to 2.5 rems. Also, we'll add the cursor property with the value pointer so that users know they can click on it. This is just in case someone uses our page in a narrow window with a mouse. We also need to remove default button styles here, right? So let's remove the border and background color. And finally, we need to change the button's color to white. Great! Let's also add a color change on hover, just like we did with the close button in the modal, and this element is ready. We can move on. This time, we'll create the menu view for mobile devices. Remember, we want to cover the entire page with a blue color and place the menu links in the center. How will we do that? Let's see what the menu looks like in HTML. We have the element header nav and header nav list. Inside, there are a few links with the class header nav link. The header nav list element collects all list elements, and I think it's a good candidate for style changes. We'll expand it to the entire width and height of the page and stack the header nav link elements one below the other. What's more, we'll center them. This sounds like a good plan, right? So let's get to work. We'll do it similarly to the nav links. We'll use the active modifier. When the user clicks the hamburger icon, we'll add this modifier to the list of links, completely changing its look. Of course, we need to write this in the media query for the window width max 768 pixels. Now it's your task. Write the styles for this element with the active modifier. Think about how to do it. To preview the changes, simply add the modifier in the HTML code and see how you're doing. To help you, I'll show you what the final effect should look like on the slide. For a background color, use the color 0A2647. Remember to remove the current menu by setting the display property to none for the header nav list class. Use everything you know about CSS. Pause and give it a try. We'll talk again in a moment. And how does your nav list look? I hope you managed to achieve this effect. I'll show you how I would do it now, and you can compare your version. First, I would start by removing the header nav list menu. Next, I would add the background color to see how big the element is and if it occupies the entire page. Next, I would work on stretching it. How? There are different ways to do this, but I would use fixed positioning, which will stick the menu in place. To ensure that the menu takes up the entire width and height of the page, I would set the top, left, bottom and right properties to 0. We did a similar thing with the modal and its background, right? Next, I would use Flexbox here. It makes it easy to center the links. To do this, I would set the justify content and align items properties to center. As you can see, the links are centered now. We have one more thing to improve. We need to stack the links one below the other. How do we do it? Of course, by changing the flex direction property to column. This way, we have achieved the exact effect from the slide. Okay, we can move on. The next task is adding the close button to the menu. And that's another task for you. Place the same close button in the top right corner of the menu. On the slide, you can now see what it should look like and where it should be located. Make sure that when you hover over it with the mouse, it changes color to light blue, just like the modal close button. Pause the video and get to work. Welcome back. Did you use what we did earlier for this task? I hope so. When working on the modal, I mentioned that we would save the close button style separately because it's a universal element we can use elsewhere. And here we can use it. Inside the header nav list, I wrote a button with the class close button. I actually copied it from the modal. As you can see, the button is in the perfect place and the right size. It looks exactly as it should. But we have one problem. This button is visible on all devices. We need to remove it somehow on devices wider than 768 pixels. But how to do it? To solve this, we need to hide it on wider devices by setting the display property to none. In the max 768 pixels media query, we need to set the display property to block, for example. And that's the biggest challenge with this task. Did you figure it out? We need to use our knowledge of selectors here. Do you remember when we worked on the About Me section? We had a similar problem with social media icons. We wanted to add some left margin to the icons, but only in the About Me section. The problem was that the element with social media class also appeared in other project parts. To limit this change to the icons in the About Me section, we wrote it like this. We first used the section class name and then wrote the social media class after a space. Here we'll do something similar. We'll write the element class name in which the close button is located, which is header nav list. Then after a space, we'll write the close button class. Now I'll set the values to the display property, block in the media query and none in the style.css file. And it's done. Okay, finally let's complete the CSS code with comments. In the responsive.css file, we need to note that the styles we wrote are for the header. It looks like the HTML and CSS parts are complete. Now it's time to get to JavaScript. Oh, and make sure you removed the active modifier in the HTML file. We'll start with the hamburger icon task. We want the menu with the active modifier to appear when the hamburger is clicked. Are you ready to write this yourself? Try it, I'm sure you can do it. Pause again and we'll talk again in a moment. Good luck! Okay, let's discuss the solution. First, we need to save the element with the hamburger class in a variable. The next element we need to save in a variable is the header nav list. We'll be changing its class. In the next step, we connect an event listener to the hamburger. We listen for a click, and as a function, we'll write adding the header nav list active class to the menu. And that's it. Now when we press the hamburger, the menu should appear covering the whole page. Let's check it. And indeed, it does. This means everything we wrote so far is correct. Great! Let's now work on closing the menu together. First, let's write the code so that clicking the close button closes the menu. But be careful. We need to specify this exact button, so we need to write the header navlist class before the button class. We'll do the same in the modal. We'll write the contact modal class here. Each of these buttons has a different function. We need to save the exact buttons in the variables to avoid confusion and incorrect code behavior. Okay, we'll also add an event listener to listen for this button's click event. As a function, we'll write code that removes the active class from the menu. Let's check if it works. Yes, we can now open and close the menu. But this isn't the end of this task. Look what happens when I click a link in the menu. Do you see? It seems we are taken to the correct section. You can see this by seeing the scroll bar on the right. The problem is that the menu stays visible. We need to add code to make the menu with the active class disappear when we click one of the links. And this is your next task. I want you to have many opportunities to work on your own. That's how you learn most effectively. Try to handle this task. Pause and get to work. Did you manage to write working code? If so, huge congratulations. If not, see my solution. We want the menu to close when any link is clicked, right? We worked on the links in the previous video and wrote event listeners for them, right? I think this is the best place to add the code. But what will we add? We want to turn off the nav list's active state when the user clicks one of the links. We'll do this similarly to the active class for the links. We'll save the element with the header nav list active class in a variable. Let's say active menu list. We'll do this to check whether the menu list has the active class. If it does, we'll remove it. If it doesn't, we'll ignore it and move on. As you can see, the code for active menu list looks very similar to the one for previous active link. Okay, let's check if it worked. Yes, as expected. Now, when I click a link, the menu disappears. And that's what we wanted. The only problem we still have with this menu is with the project section. As you've probably seen several times, the menu doesn't cover the project images. They stick out from under it. Don't worry about this for now. We'll deal with it when we test the page. Okay, the last task in this video is to rewrite the code using functions. And I know you can do it yourself. See how we handle this with the modal and try to write the code related to the hamburger in a similar way. Pause and try to solve this last task. The solution should look like this. I created 3 functions. 2 of them, show menu and hide menu, will be event handler functions. The third function is setup menu event listener, where we add event listeners to the hamburger elements. I left the nav menu variable at the top because I need it in 2 places. This way, I don't have to write it twice. It's written in the global scope and I can use it in each function. Finally, of course, I call the setup menu event listeners function. This was a challenging episode full of tasks. I'm glad you're trying to write your code. The more you write, the faster you learn. Join me in the next episode where we'll work on another useful feature. See you! Hello and welcome to this episode. Now we'll add the last feature to our portfolio website. We've done a lot of work so far, and the website is already very interactive, isn't it? We've added a modal, a cool effect, the navigation links, and a hamburger menu for mobile devices. Huge congratulations! That's a big achievement. You've come a long way in this course. Now it's time for the last element. We'll add a feature you're already familiar with, the dark light mode switcher. Yes, we'll change all the styles on the page to look great in dark and light themes. Are you ready for this challenge? Let's get started. As always, let's first discuss what we need to do. We'll create an icon that changes the site's theme from light to dark and vice versa. We'll do it as follows. The website style will be dark at first. Why? We already have a dark background and blue colors are quite dark. The text, on the other hand, is white, so we have a dark mode already. We'll also add an icon. First, there will be a button to change the theme, but it will also show which theme is enabled. If we have a dark style, we'll insert a moon icon. When we change the style to light, the icon will be the sun. Moon and sun icons are often used for theme changes. We'll adjust its style to the current theme to ensure the icon is always clearly visible. We'll add the icons and the theme change function in JavaScript. We'll also need to write more styles for the whole page. We'll have to define how it should look in the light theme and then implement these changes. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's start by adding the moon icon to the menu. I want you to first try your hand at creating this element. Think about which HTML tag would fit best here. I'll give you a hint. We'll use an HTML entity here, just like with the close button or hamburger icon. You can now see the code for the moon icon on the slide. You can use it to create the icon in the menu. The final effect is also on the slide. The icon is next to the hamburger menu icon in the mobile view and next to the menu in the desktop view. Don't worry if the distance between elements is a bit different from the slide. We'll fix it together. The key is to arrange these elements side by side. You can see this in the final effect. Pause the video and get to work. Good luck! Alright, let's discuss the solution. I have the code ready, so I'll show you how to do it step by step. First, I created a button and added a class named ThemeSwitcher. Inside, I put the HTML entity code for the moon icon. The button appears to be in the right place in the desktop view. However, we had a problem when we narrowed the window and the hamburger menu appeared. Don't worry, we'll deal with it in a moment. First, let's add the styles to this element. We need to make it a bit bigger, right? I added a font size of 1.5 rem. I also made the button visible by adding a white color, and I removed its default border and background color. Then I added the cursor property with the pointer value to show the user this is a clickable element. With that, we have a well-prepared theme switcher button. But we still have the positioning problem on mobile devices, right? This is a problem because we set the justify content property to space between for the elements inside the header. As you remember from the Flexbox lesson, this means the elements are spaced nicely apart. but the first element is at the beginning with no gap, and the last one is at the end. If we transfer this to our header, element number 1 is the logo. The next element is navigation. It's now in the middle, right? And the third element is the moon icon. It looks very good in the desktop view. However, in the mobile view, the hamburger menu is element number 3 and the icon is number 4. Why is this happening? Because we still have the header nav element in the header. In the previous episode, we hid the header nav list element, right? But we didn't hide its parent, header nav. This element is empty, but it's still in the header. This isn't a big problem, but because of this, the hamburger menu isn't centered, but slightly to the right. However, whether the hamburger menu is centered or where it is now, it's still not in the right position. It should be close to the moon icon, right? How can we do this using our Flexbox knowledge and still using the space between value? We need to treat both buttons, the hamburger and the moon, as one common element. Then they'll automatically be on the right side. Were you able to solve this problem on your own? We need to wrap both buttons in one common div. I'll name it header buttons. Let's check the effect. Yes, both icons moved to the right. We still need to change their direction so they're next to each other instead of one below the other, right? How do we do that? We'll turn the recently created div into a flex container. This way, the buttons will be side by side. Let's add some space between them with the gap property, and it's done. The menu looks very good, right? Task 1 is completed. Let's move on to JavaScript. Here's your next challenge. Write code that adds a new class called LightTheme to the body element after clicking the Theme Switcher button. When clicked again, this class should be removed. Use the inspector to check if everything works correctly. I'm sure you know how to do it. Pause the video and get to work. Good luck! Okay, how do we do this? First, we need to save the Theme Switcher button to a variable. We always start DOM manipulations this way, right? I saved this element in a variable named Theme Switcher. Then I added an event listener for the click event, and inside the event handler function, I wrote code to toggle the LightTheme class on the body element using the toggle method. I added this class to the body element, so I changed the class list in the document body. And that's it. Let's check if it works. When I click the theme switcher, nothing happens yet because we haven't added any styles to the LightTheme class. But in the inspector, we can see the class toggling on the body element. The JavaScript works perfectly. Now let's make something really cool together. When you click the theme switcher button, the icon will change too. If the light theme is active, the icon will be a sun. If the dark theme is active, it will be a moon. Right now we have the moon icon. Let's think about how to write this JavaScript code. We want the icon to change depending on whether the light theme is active or not. The best way to do this is to check if the body has this class. How can we do that? We can use the contains method, right? And we can write this as an if-else statement. Let's get to work. We'll write that if the document.body has the light theme class, the theme switcher should show the sun icon. The HTML entity code is inside the theme switcher button, right? It seems we can modify it by changing the text content. Let's try this. I'll set the text content to the HTML entity code for the sun and see the effect. Oops! Instead of an icon, we just see some numbers and symbols. Something is wrong. While we can use HTML entities directly in our HTML code, it doesn't work the same way in JavaScript. Here we need to use something else. Unicode characters can represent each HTML entity. Imagine it as a huge library of symbols and icons, including every HTML entity, so the sun icon is there too. We just need to use the correct Unicode code. We can use this here because it will be decoded and turned into an icon. How do I know this? Remember when we set a special meta tag with the charset attribute in the head section of our page? We set it to UTF-8, which stands for Unicode Transformation Format 8-bit. This means our page can convert Unicode characters and symbols into the correct icons. There's a special way of writing Unicode characters in JavaScript. On the unicode.org website, where you can find all Unicode characters and symbols, the sun icon is listed as number 2600. To display it correctly in JavaScript, we need to add a backslash and the lowercase letter u before the number 2600. And that's it. Okay, I entered this code as the text content for the theme switcher. Now it's time to check if the sun icon displays correctly. Yes, the moon has turned into the sun. Awesome! Next, we need to make sure the theme switcher changes back to a moon icon when clicked again. I've clicked the button several times and we still have the sun. Let's check the list for the moon icon code. We'll use the first quarter moon, which has the code 263D. Let's write this with a backslash and the letter U. And it's done. Now the icon changes depending on the website theme. Lastly, let's rewrite this code using functions. I leave the variable theme switcher in the global scope so we can use it in multiple functions. Let's create the first function. It will handle toggling the light theme class. I'll name this function toggle theme. Done. The second function, called update theme switcher icon, will change the theme switcher icon. I'll copy the code into it and it's ready. Now pay attention because I'm going to do something interesting. I'll use one function inside another. I'll name the new function handle theme change. The first thing it will do is toggle the light theme class on the body element. The toggle theme function does that, so I'll just call it here. Next, we'll change the icon depending on whether the body has the light theme class or not. And hey, that's exactly what the update theme switcher icon function does. So I'll use it here. This way, I have a function handle theme change that does two things, but it's still one job, handling theme change, right? I divided these tasks into separate functions, and the code is now very clear and readable. Good job! The last function I'll create is setup theme event listener. Inside it, we'll add an event listener to the theme switcher. As the event handler function, I'll write handle theme change. And finally, we need to call the setup theme event listener function. Great job! And you know what? This is the end of writing JavaScript code for this task. The theme switch works great. What's left is to write styles for the light theme. And this will be a great CSS task for you. I'll show you how to start writing styles for a specific theme. I'll also show you the new color for the light theme. Finally, I'll show you a final look at the page with the active light theme. You can download it below this video. Your task is to make the page look exactly like the version on the slide. It should look like that only when the light theme class is active. Sounds great, right? Here's an extra color we'll use in the project. We'll use it to fill the background of the header, footer, and About Me and Skills sections. I'll add a few styles to the CSS file to show you how to change styles only when the light theme is active. First, we'll change the background color of the whole page and the text color. As you can see, the body's background color is currently dark navy blue and the text color is white. I want to change both of these when the light theme is active. The body gets a light theme class when we switch to the light theme. So we can add a new background and text colors to this class, right? There are a few ways to do this. We can add a new comment before the header section and write the new styles there. We can also add a few new lines to each section. If we change something in the header, we'll write it in the header section and so on. But this method can get messy later. There's also a third method. We can create a separate file for light theme styles. And we'll use this method. So please create a new file and name it lighttheme.css. This will keep our code organized. Of course, remember to add it to the HTML head section. I'll start by writing a few lines in the new file. And your task will be to finish creating the light theme. Let's go back to changing the body's background and text colors. I'll add this to the light theme class, which the body has when the light theme is active. Now, see what happens when I click the moon icon. The background and text colors change. Great! Now I'll change the header color to light blue. I just wrote the light theme class before the header class name to do this. This way, the change will only apply to the header when the body has the light theme class. This method allows you to change any style on the page for any element. Just write the light theme class name first and you're done. As you can see, the header already has a nice light blue color. Here starts your task. Change the light theme style so the page looks exactly like the design I shared with you. You can see it on the screen now, but you'll also find a link under the video. Download it and work step by step to achieve the final look. Don't forget about mobile devices. There are additional elements like the hamburger icon and hamburger menu. Also remember the modal. If you need to use media queries, write them in the light theme file as well. You have a really enjoyable task ahead. During the work, make sure that the page in the dark theme looks exactly the same as before and that you haven't changed anything. Good luck and let's get to work. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this task. After making all the changes, here's what the light theme file should look like. As you can see, I changed the styles for general elements, including the theme switcher color, anchor tag colors, and call to action button colors. I also changed the background color of the header nav list active element, which is the menu displayed on mobile devices. Next, I changed the background color of the About and Skills sections. In the Skills section, I also changed the text color to white. In the next section, the Contact, I changed the color of the paragraphs and anchor tags to white for better visibility. I also changed the footer background color to a new light blue color. For hidden elements, I changed the modal background color to white and the close button color to blue. Lastly, I added a change for devices with a width of 768 pixels or less. I changed the color of the hamburger icon. As you can see, I used the light theme class name for each element. Finally, let's test if everything looks good. Yes, the page looks nice, the color matches well, and it's a truly light style. When I click the theme switcher, the colors change beautifully, with a slight animation. It looks great. To be sure, I'll also check the mobile view and the modal and hamburger menu. As you can see, everything looks good here too. Great job! Okay, finally, I have some news for you. First, we have just finished working on JavaScript. You've seen how to write functional code and how JavaScript improves the page's interactivity. It's been 5 hard days. I'm very happy you made it this far in this course. It was a challenging task. But I have another news. I have prepared an additional video for you. It's completely optional, but filled with extra JavaScript tips and tricks. We will improve the modal and theme switcher in this video, giving them a new upgrade. Think of it as finding an extra piece of chocolate in your snack pack. Totally unexpected and super sweet. If you're ready for more JavaScript challenges and extra fun, please watch this final episode. You are going to enjoy it. So, happy coding and see you there! Hello and welcome to this extra optional episode. It's awesome that you choose to watch it. By taking this extra step to learn more, you're making a great choice. Let's see what we'll be doing today. First, we'll improve a modal. The modal works fine now, but we'll add a new feature. Closing the modal by clicking anywhere outside of it, not just the close button. This is helpful because sometimes clicking a small close button is hard, but I'll show you how to add this easily. After that, we'll work on the theme switcher, the button that changes the website's look from dark to light. It seems okay, but there's a problem. Let me show you. When I open the website, it's in dark mode. Clicking the theme switcher changes it to light mode, and clicking again changes it back to dark. If someone likes light mode, they can click the button to change it, right? Not exactly. When you refresh the page, it goes back to dark mode. So the user can only keep the light mode until they refresh the page. We need to let them choose a theme and make the browser remember their choice. That's what we'll work on next. I'll explain how the browser saves data and we'll write code to keep the chosen theme even after refreshing the page. Sounds interesting, right? Let's get started. This time I'll show you the complete code first, then explain it step by step. Here's the updated code for the modal. What's different? Look closely. I added a new function called handleClickOutside. Inside this function, I wrote code using the event object. It also uses the hideModal function we wrote before. We'll discuss this code in detail soon. I added another event listener to the setupModal event listeners function. This time, we're listening for a click event on the contactModal element. When it's clicked, the handleClickOutside function runs. Let's test if it works. I'll open the modal, click outside it, and as you can see, it closes. I'll also check if clicking inside the modal on the form does nothing. It stays open, which is good. Let's see if the close button still works. Yes, it does, and it closes the modal correctly. As you can see, we only added a little code to close the modal by clicking outside it. Let's go through the details. Why did I add the event listener to the contactModal element? In the HTML code, the contactModal element is the background that appears when the modal is open. We darkened and blurred it. It covers the whole web page. And it's perfect for adding an event listener. When the user clicks outside the modal, they click this background. Now let's look at the handleClickOutside function, which runs when the user clicks the modal background. I use the event object here. Why? I need to check if the user clicked the background, which is the contactModal element. The event object has many properties we can use, one of which is the target property. It shows which element was clicked. Let's add a console.log to display the target property. Done. I'll open the modal and see what shows up when I click the background. The console shows a div with the class contactModal. I'll try again, but this time I will click inside the modal window. Different elements show up: form, input, heading, or div with the class contactModal content. None of them is the contactModal element, right? That's why we use an if statement in this function, to make sure the user clicks the background and not the form or heading inside the modal. It's very important. I'll remove this condition for a moment to show you. Now the modal closes whenever I click any element. See? If I want to type something in a form field, I can't because the modal keeps closing. The handleClickOutside function first checks if the user clicked the modal background. If so, it hides the modal window. If the user clicks any other element, nothing happens. This is exactly what we wanted. We only needed a little code to achieve a useful feature. You didn't need to learn any new techniques. We just used a new event object property, and that's it. Now get ready for a little harder task. I'll show you how to use the browser's memory. Again, I'll show you the complete code first, then explain it step by step. This time, there are big changes in the theme switcher code. We no longer have the toggle theme or update theme switcher icon functions. Instead, we have a new one, enable theme function. The handle theme change function is still there, but it's completely different. We also have a new variable, saved theme, and some short code under the variables. It looks a bit complicated, but I'll explain everything. Let's start with a new object, the local storage object, which allows us to store data in the browser's memory. Imagine you're working on your computer. You get a great idea and want to remember it. What do? You can write it on a sticky note and stick it to your desk. When you leave the computer and return the next day, you will still have that note. You will remember it. That's how local storage works. It's like the browser's sticky note. You can store information there, read it later, or even delete it. Have you ever added a product to a shopping cart in an online store? Probably yes. But have you left the product in the cart without buying it? When you return to the website hours later or even the next day, was the product still in your cart? Yes, it is. The product in your cart was saved in local storage. When you reopened the website, the browser checked local storage, found the product in the cart, and showed it to you. We'll do the same with the theme preference. Local storage is a built-in browser object. Let's check it in the console. I'll type local storage in camel case and press enter. We see storage and in curly braces, the information for that length is 0. This means local storage is empty. We can use several methods on the local storage object, but today we'll use two. setItem to save something to local storage and getItem to read something from it. With setItem, we need to give two things. First, the name under which we'll find the information, and second, what the information is. For the getItem method, we just enter the name of the information we want to get. Okay, you now know the basics of storing information in the browser. Let's look at the JavaScript code. I left the theme switcher variable unchanged. We need it in the functions. I also added another variable, saved theme. Here I saved what's in local storage under the name theme. Remember that local storage was empty, so that variable will be null. After the variables, we have a new function called enable theme. This will allow us to switch themes easily. In the previous code version, the toggle theme function added or removed the light theme class. We also had the update theme switcher icon function, which changed the sun or moon icon depending on the website theme. I used this code in the new enable theme function, which includes adding and removing the light theme class and changing the icon. What's new is saving the theme in local storage. Let's look at the function code. What happens here? As you see, it has a parameter theme. For now, it has the default argument dark. Let's see what happens inside the function. First, I check if the theme parameter is light. If so, I prepare the page to adopt the light theme. I add the light theme class to the body and change the icon to a sun. After all this, I save the light theme in local storage. This is important because the browser will remember it. If the user closes the page, we'll still have this information in memory when it's reopened. Let's see what happens next. The remaining code runs if we pass something other than light as an argument to this function. This means the page theme should be dark. So we adjust the page to the dark theme by removing the light theme class, changing the icon to a moon, and saving in local storage that the dark mode is now active. If there was information that the theme was light in local storage, it will be overwritten with the new information. This is the most important function in this task. It allows us to adjust the page's look based on the user's choice. Now we need to work on the logic for when each theme should be enabled. In what cases do we need to enable the light theme, and in which cases should we enable the dark theme? First, when the user opens the website, we need to decide which mode to display the page in, right? That's why I also called the enable theme function right after declaring it. What does this give us? This function runs once right after the page loads. Look at what happens then. The saved theme variable will store the current theme information from the browser's memory. Let's analyze two possible scenarios. This will help you understand what's happening here. In the first scenario, the user visits our portfolio page for the first time. We don't yet have any information about their preferences in memory. The saved theme variable will be null because there is no saved choice in local storage. In this case, the enable theme function runs because we called it. It will be the default argument in this case. Inside the function, we check if the theme is light. So dark is not light, and we'll enable the dark theme, right? And that's good because it's our default mode. Now imagine the second scenario. The user has already visited our page and finished browsing with the light theme enabled. They closed the browser and returned after some time. This time, the saved theme variable will be the light theme, right? We then pass this information to the enable theme function, which runs instantly when the user opens the page. This time, the theme is light, so we need to change the page to a light theme. And the user will immediately see the page in their chosen style. You need to know that getting and saving information from local storage to a variable and then calling and running the enable theme function is very fast. It happens in a blink of an eye. That's why the user gets the page in the chosen style and won't even notice any behind-the-scenes work. Now we need to handle the situation when the user clicks the icon to change the style. For this, we'll use the handle theme change function. The code inside it will look different now. Here, we'll check if the body element currently has the light theme class. If it does, we'll run the enable theme function with the dark argument. This will change the page to a dark theme, right? And it makes sense because if the body element has the light theme class, the user is browsing the page in light theme mode. If they click the theme switcher, it means they want to change it to a dark theme. In the next line, I wrote that in any other case, we'd enable the light theme using the enable theme function, this time with the light argument. The setup event listener function stays as it is. Whew, that wasn't easy, right? But don't worry, this was a completely optional, more advanced episode. Congratulations on completing the entire 5-day JavaScript series, including this additional episode. You've done an amazing job, and your dedication to learning is truly inspiring. Keep up the great work and remember that every step you take brings you closer to becoming a skilled coder. You're doing great. See you tomorrow. Be ready because we'll move on to a completely different topic. The end of the course is getting closer. Tomorrow we'll deal with performance checking and improvements. You'll see how professional web developers can improve websites and increase their speed. See you soon!